Today, on Be Something Wonderful, how do I stay in the feeling of wish fulfilled? I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. Big video this morning. I want to talk about a client that I heard from that it's been a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks now, when we first talked, and it was questions around staying in the state of wish fulfilled, the state that Neville Goddard talks about, the state that you're already conscious of being that person that you want to be, that you already have what you desire to have. This state of wish fulfilled, which I've been calling the I am vertical, right? Staying in that knowing that it's already yours. And I made the distinction that it's not a temporary fleeting feeling of fulfillment. It's a state of being. Right? It goes beyond. It's irrespective, regardless of the conditions that are going on out there. Right? Doesn't matter what's coming up in 3D conditions. It's a state of being, fulfillment, period. And his questions were centered around work at the time and even a new girl that he was dating. So I got an email from him. He goes, Tom, unbelievable. So he stayed in the, his struggle was he thought he was really trying to capture the feeling. A 3D feeling of feeling good, of feeling fulfilled. And he just said, some days he was in, some days he was out. Remember, the feelings in 3D, these temporary thoughts and feelings are temporary. The conditions, the 3D conditions around you change. The conditions of thoughts and feelings within you change. That implies, that indicates that they're not reality. Right? What you decide, your assumptions, your state of being, is the one and only reality. Your imagination is the one and only reality. Your I am is the one and only reality. You're the only one that determines the state of wish fulfilled. And that's you being in that state of already knowing that everything you want is yours. Already knowing that that person you want to be, you already are that person. And staying in that knowing, staying in that conviction. And so he told me of this thing. There was, I guess, a work-related event that he wanted to bring her to. People were bringing their spouses and their boyfriends and girlfriends to this event. So it was 1+, and he didn't have a plus. And he asked her, and she wasn't sure. So she didn't say why. But he says, Tom, normally I would derail here in a state of non-fulfillment, right? Feeling like I'm not in my state of wish fulfilled now, right? He wouldn't be able to say that. And he goes, but I got it, that it's already mine, that I give the meaning to the events, that I am in a state of absolute conviction, that we're together. It doesn't matter what happens in those 3D events, whether she goes or doesn't go. And then he hears from her, and she actually wants to go. She says yes. And it was related to once a month she would get together with her father. Their parents are divorced. And they would have dinner. But her father canceled this month. He had a work trip. So do you see how it doesn't matter. Once you know that you're in that state of wish fulfilled, regardless of what's going on out there, and regardless of your changing mental states of thoughts and feelings, that it's a state of being, it's a state of absolute conviction, that you are that identity for whom and through whom that reality is already real. So I want to hit this. Remember, the feeling of wish fulfilled, the feeling of already being that person, that identity you desire to be, and already have that, what you desire to have, is a state of being. It's a feeling which is a conviction of beingness. It's a conviction of beingness. It's not a temporary thought or feeling. So you don't have to spend your time flipping thoughts and flipping feelings and feeling that you're in the state or out of the state. It's your natural state. I am that, or I am that I am is your natural state of being. Fulfillment's natural, right? You are only ever seeing, perceiving, and experiencing that which you are conscious of being. Wish fulfilled is your natural state of being. I am that. I am that I am. Man, this is what Neville Goddard says. Man is incapable of seeing other than the contents of his own consciousness. Feeling remember, this feeling of wish fulfilled is not the temporary 3D translation of temporary feelings of fulfillment or feeling good. That's not what Neville's getting at, right? It's not a temporary emotion. It's the acceptance of your end, The acceptance that it's done. The acceptance that your assumption, what you assume is your reality. That's what the state of wish fulfilled is, right? It's not this temporary feeling or translation of feeling good, right? Otherwise, you're never gonna, you're gonna be up and down, in and out. You're gonna be swinging with that pendulum that we talked about, right? From desiring to doubting, right? So when you allow changing 3D world conditions and circumstances to determine your fulfillment, you are also giving them power to deny you fulfillment. Do you hear it? So how could you possibly stay in this state that you feel this feeling of wish fulfilled if you're going to give your power to the conditions? The conditions are always changing. That's their nature. Change is the nature of the 3D conditions, of the beingness. It's always changing form. Remember, it's the change in the changeless reality. We're talking about fulfillment as the changeless reality. The I am that. That's the changeless reality. That never changes. Fulfillment never changes, but your experience of it does, right? You allow those conditions to determine. When you are expressing and defining wish fulfilled as an emotional reaction to circumstances and conditions in your life, then it's not a real state of being. Do you hear it? When you're saying I'm only fulfilled when conditions are the way that I want them to be, that I would like to perceive them to be, then you're expressing, defining wish fulfilled as an emotional reaction to circumstances and conditions in your life, right? Then it's not a real state of being. I am that is the real state of being, but an unreal, not reality feeling of fulfillment that can be taken away and denied. Do you see it? You're defining it as something that can be taken away from you or denied. That's an unreality. You can't be denied anything. Nothing can be taken away from you. You are complete and whole forevermore, right? But you're defining it as something that is fleeting, that can be taken away or denied when you give those circumstances power, when you give those changing thoughts and feelings power. So, that's why I love this. And I want to thank this client again, who I still continue to talk to once a month, twice a month now. Conditions are conditions, but I am. I love it. But I am what? I am complete. I am whole. I am fulfilled. I am unmoved by changing conditions. That's what that means. It means thoughts and feelings are thoughts and feelings, but I am. 3D people, events, and circumstances are 3D people, events, and circumstances, but I am. Those inner thoughts and feelings are those outer people, events, and circumstances. I am's a state of being. It's absolute fulfillment, an absolute state of conviction. That's the state of wish fulfilled, right? Assumptions and acceptance that it is done. It's the assumption and the acceptance that it is done, that you are complete, that it is yours, that what you decide is reality, that there are no facts outside of what you decide, what you declare, what you announce, which you accept as reality. Wow. When I speak of feeling, I do not mean emotion, but acceptance of the fact that the desire is fulfilled. These are the words of Neville Goddard. When I speak of feeling, I do not mean emotion, these temporary emotions of feeling good or feeling bad, but acceptance of the fact, the assumption, the state of being that the desire is fulfilled. That's the vertical. That's the vortex that Abraham Hicks talks about when she talks about getting in the vortex. But remember, we said you are the vortex, that you're always in it. Right? But that's what, remember, they ask her the same question. What happens and even Abraham Hicks talks about bouncing out of the vortex. But what I'm saying, you never bounce out of the vertical. You're always in the vertical. You can only have the experience of not being in the vertical and not being in the vortex, but you're there. Right? Only when you're relying on thoughts, the outer conditions or the changing thoughts and feelings, when you're defining wish fulfilled that way. Do you see it? So let's hit this. It is an announcement, an acceptance, and an assumption, AAA, announcement, acceptance, and assumption of fulfillment versus a temporary feeling to be maintained. Do you see it? It's an announcement, an acceptance, an assumption. It's a state of being versus a temporary feeling to be maintained. It's a state of being versus a reaction to thoughts and feelings or a reaction to outer conditions and circumstances. Wow. Powerful, right? You transcend the swing of the pendulum. Some of you asked when I did a couple videos on the swinging pendulum, the law of nature, right? The law of the universal laws of polarity and rhythm, as we talked about swinging between desire and then doubting it. Really desiring it. And then the desire not to have its opposite, right? You're swinging between opposites. And some of you said, how do you stop the swing? Well, you don't stop the swing. The swing is the change in the changeless reality. You don't want to stop change. That's creation. That's you experiencing reality. That's you in 3D. That's you having life experiences. It's about transcending it, right? That's what we were talking about. You transcend the swing of the pendulum between fulfillment and non-fulfillment. And rest, the Sabbath, right? Rest in the knowing. Be still and know. And state of being, I am that it's done, it's yours, regardless of the temporary changing conditions. You rest. Be still and know that I am God. Be still, rest in the Sabbath, in the knowing, be still and know, in the state of being, I am that it's done and it's yours. That's what that means. You transcend the swing. Change is inevitable in the world of duality and relativity. That's how we experience ourselves as source. That's how we know experientially what we already know, the change and the changeless. So it's never about stilling. So it's about not going to the extremes swing with the pendulum, right? That swinging in the sweet spot of reality, in that vertical, right? In that vertical of knowing that it's already yours, that it's already done. That's powerful. So it's not about stopping the pendulum. Rather, it's about transcending your automatic experience of it. Do you see it? Because when you desire something, when you assume something, when you take a stand in your assumption, well, the opposite's there. And if you're not consciously aware of your true nature, who you really are, you automatically, in a long unconscious or subconscious line, swing with the pendulum to the other side, to the doubting of it, to the fear that you won't get it. Do you see it? It's automatic. Unless you're aware of your true nature. Then it's not automatic. Then you transcend the swing in the swing of the pendulum. You stay in the sweet spot of the knowing. Do you get this? That the magnitude of what we're talking about here. We've talked about it before, I know. But look at the law of rhythm. That's the law of opposites, where everything swings between a pair of opposites. It's a universal law of the world of duality and relativity, right? But when you swing to what you desire, when you swing to your assumption, when you stand in that assumption, I want this, when you start really wanting it, you swing back to the doubt or the fear of not getting it or getting something unwanted. Do you see it? And the reason you do that is because you go unconscious. You're not being aware of that I am. I am that I am. I am source and there is no other. When you're aware of it, you don't swing to extremes. You transcend it, right? That's how change or creation is possible from that swing. So you're not there to still the swing. You're there to swing with it, to swing above it, to know that it's done, right? It's the labeling and the judgment of one side is good and the other side is bad, or one side is wanted and one side is unwanted, that creates that swinging to extremes, right? One side is good, the other side, that creates the extreme swings in the experience of non-fulfillment. Right? Remember, the whole entire thing is fulfillment. Extremes meet. There's only fulfillment. But you have that experience, right? The state of wish fulfilled is being fulfilled irrespective of the changing conditions or the swing of the pendulum. Right? When you're judging, remember, it's the same substance. It's the same, it's just a different vibration. What you judge as good is just a different vibration of what you're judging as bad, but it's the same substance, it's the same thing. So you're judging the same thing as good and bad. And then you're not seeing change. You're looking out there and not seeing change in your 3D world and wondering why. Because you're judging the same thing as good and bad. How can it change into what you want? Do you see it? It's that judgment, right? I am, there it is. I am is fulfillment. Right? This is all fulfillment. Extremes meet. There's only unity. There's only fulfillment. Right? But as you step into a desire, there's nothing wrong with declaring what you want. stepping into that assumption, the desire to have or be what you want, that desired outcome. But the key is to move there and know that it's already yours versus swinging unconsciously or subconsciously or automatically along unconscious lines or subconscious lines to the desire. You have a strong desire not to be or have something else. When you hear this, when you create the desire to have or be something, automatically, this is a universal law of rhythm, of polarity, you create the desire not to be or have something else. And that creates doubt and fear of that desired outcome. And you call one good and one bad. And it's the same substance, extremes meet, so you're judging the same thing as good and bad. The interaction of desire, of consciously desiring and choosing, is good. It's okay, but that's not bad. It's all good. Is followed by the equal but opposite unconscious reaction. Unless you're aware of that I am. That's what we mean. Unless you're aware of, that's what we mean by rising in positivity. It's not positive thoughts. It's degree of positivity is the degree that you're aware of your true nature. That I within you, that I am. To the degree that you're conscious of who you really are, you're no longer swinging unconsciously. That's the law of rhythm opposites. Remember, you're either creating your own reality consciously, or something or someone else is, and it gets created along unconscious lines or subconscious lines. When you're not aware of who you really are, you're swinging with the pendulum. That's why you have good conditions and then you wake up the next morning and you have conditions that you judge bad. And you go, what's going on? Well, that's what's going on. You're not supposed to judge any of them. You stand up above all that in your assumption of fulfillment, knowing that everything's unfolding, right? That means that the counter swing, remember the counter swing takes place along unconscious lines. That counter swing, when you take a stand in your assumption, unless you're consciously aware of it, right? Either you are creating your own reality consciously or something or someone else is. That's what we mean by that. Very powerful today. What's the takeaways? There's only fulfillment. There's only unity. There's only oneness. Opposites are simply different degrees of vibration of the same thing. The law of polarity, the law of rhythm. Right? So it's not judging, that's what we mean, but you give meaning to all the conditions. But when you're judging, when you're not happy with what is, when you're saying that's not the way I want things, then you're unconsciously swinging with the pendulum. You've gone unconscious. Right? By that. Instead, know that all conditions are unfolding to what you want. See the great reality behind all conditions. The greater reality, or the great reality, right? Everything, desires, feelings, thoughts, and emotions travel in pairs in the world of duality. They travel in pairs. The good, what you say is good and bad, or hot and cold, or right and wrong, it's all travels in pairs. But none of them were supposed to be judged as wanted and unwanted. They were all supposed to be judged righteously, good and very good, right? So because the extremes meet, it's all one. When you're judging it, you're declaring the something, that one something, that same thing, that substance, that God within you, to be good and bad at the same time. Do you see it? This means you feel stuck, swinging between unwanted and wanted and unwanted. He's hot and cold, or she's hot and cold. Or my reality is hot and cold. Things are going my way, then they're not. Right? That's why you're swinging unconsciously with that pendulum. You're judging that same substance. Right? It's all working out for you. It's all happening for you and through you. God always has your back. God's always for you. God always is loving you. God always has your hand, is always leading you. But when you see something that you don't like, and through the reality, you let his hand go. Say, God, forget it. No, stop leading me to everything I want. That's what you're saying to God. Stop leading me to everyone. I'm going to do it myself. I can't see because I can only see 0.0001% of reality. And I know that you can see everything, but the heck with it. I don't like these conditions that I'm seeing, so I'm just going to go along my way. Okay, guys, you see it, right? Remember, assume and declare your wish fulfilled no matter what. Allow those changing conditions to be. Stay in the state of wish fulfilled means to know and accept fulfillment as the only reality. Accept fulfillment as the only reality. Accept that I am that, the only reality. Your assumption. You are source, and there is no other. You are the only reality. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, thank you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for liking and sharing the videos and commenting on them. Thank you for being part of our Facebook group, the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful. For joining us on our Instagram and Twitter. Eventually we'll have different content on there. but it's great if you could just visit us, just be part of that. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin. And our membership channel, which is growing day by day, we have a live stream coming up in less than 2 weeks on September 24th, 2023, 9 a.m. in the morning, to be exclusively broadcast and aired on the membership channel. I'm going to be answering your questions live that you're sending me to info@besomethingwonderful.com. The last live stream went 50 minutes or so. Expect a good one this time. And we just released a video about a few days ago on the membership channel. If you want to check it out, there's a link below. Creators, with great love, with great light and infinite gratitude, this is Tom with Be Something Wonderful in the studios here in Las Vegas. We'll see you soon.